Önce Instagram alacağım, sonra YouTube alacağım.
Tamam abi.
YouTube o kanal neredeydi? Bir de onu bulmam lazım. Yalnız o kanalın kullanıcısı şeye gelmedi. Ha, geldi, tamam. Şimdi bu kullanıcıyı bulacağız. Gene ekranlarım karışacak.
I think we are live right now for 25 minutes. Okay.
Live. No, not made for kids. Okay, we are live now.
Yeah. Okay, sir. Welcome to our new show. Yeah, I'm gonna make an opening like that.
Okay, this is
so
our first try, so you can try anything, no problem. Go ahead,
yeah.
please.
Yeah, maybe it's gonna be okay. So the first thing first, the welcome to our back to channel. That today we are launching a new brand, the new segment, like AI beyond the Silicon Valley. That's our title tonight. The most AI channels to focus on heavily on the United States and the China, and while those ecosystems matter enormously, we want to look at the bigger picture. So every week we will following the 5 regions like Turkey, the European Union, the Middle East, and the Eastern Europe and the Turkic republics. So break down this, and I'm joined by our AI and the geopolitics expert, Mr. Shadi Evren Şeker, is on air right now. Yes,
okay,
sir.
thank you for the introduction. First of all, let's introduce the new program we have. So the aim of this program is basically going beyond the Silicon Valley. We will talk about Turkey, Middle East. Actually, we can say that we will go beyond the US and China. So they are the main game makers. So we will go beyond them, and we will talk about the details in other countries, like the European Union and the regulations, of course. And
Especially.
of course, the AI, artificial intelligence, is shaping the defense technologies. And the governments are spending money, budget,
so much,
allocating budget for these expenditures in AI. And it's a part of the defense industry now. Of course, it's a part of the economy and the finance. There are lots of startups, and they are booming in these regions. So we will talk about these regions. Of course, we will put Turkey into the center of all these talks. We are from Turkey, and we have lots of access to different resources, information resources. And then we will maybe go beyond Turkey and Silicon Valley and talk about the neighbors and the other economical developments, achievements through the region. So this is our new episode, and we will start with a brief introduction to the subjects we are going to talk about. And then, of course, we have a preparation for some news, some headlines
from
happening
Turkey,
around these regions, and maybe we can go beyond these limits, because in our Turkish broadcasts, we are mainly dealing with the mainstream news, but we have some details we need to be careful about. Okay, so let's start with your first question.
Let's start with our first region then, from home, from Turkey. So what's the current landscape looking like there? Like, can Turkey become a regional personal power in AI or the defense tech or the software experts? What do you think about it?
So you mean the regional power, right? Yeah, Turkey is currently changing and shaping the landscape. So all the neighbors are somehow following and watching Turkey about the developments in the AI technology, and especially the technology for the defense. So AI is not the central technology in Turkey. In many countries, they have some AI strategies. So, for example, in Albania, they have a minister dealing with the government issues and, of course, regulations in the government. And this minister is responsible for tracking the transactions or going over the governmental documents. And there is
Yeah.
a risk of it, because if you are sitting
Exactly.
your AI in somebody else's data center,
Mhm.
then how can you, I mean, how can you make this AI responsible? Because if you put a person over there, then the person is responsible. You can maybe question, and then maybe you can punish if there is a problem with the actions. For example, what would happen if there is a misallocation of the budgets, any
Yeah.
financial problem? So these problems might be handled in a traditional way
Yeah.
for the human world. But when we are talking about AI,
Yeah.
first of all, AI is not the technology of this government, this country.
Yeah.
So, for example, in Turkey, if we are talking about an AI technology, most probably it's a technology from somebody else. And this might be a problem because you don't know what's inside of this box.
Yeah.
And also, you don't have access to this technology most of the time. Even if the technology is coming from abroad, somebody
Outside. Yeah.
else
Yeah.
outside,
Outside of your country. Yeah.
some other country, in order to survive it and sustain it, you are still connected to this country. And you don't know what's happening on this country if you are
Exactly.
running in somebody else's servers. So in Turkey, the AI is not the main concern most of the time, but
Mhm.
they are trying to do in Turkey combine the main industry, military industry, with the AI. So similar to US, just as the old military complex in Turkey,
Yes.
there is
Yeah.
a military complex booming up in the last years, last decades especially.
Yes.
And
Yes.
there are some special technologies selling to other countries from Turkey, like Kızılelma is one of the very famous projects developed in Turkey. And there is a special conference for this. I remember I have joined this conference about, I think, 5 years ago. I was a
Mhm.
talker, a speaker at that time. There are different, many parallel talks ongoing
Industries.
at the same
Talks. Yeah.
time. And IDEF, so IDEF, it's about
Conference.
a defense conference.
Defense conference. Yes. For
Yeah,
AI.
and in this
Yes.
conference, we understand that Turkey is shaping its AI technology around to the defense technology.
Yes.
So
Exactly.
there is a technology already working and selling.
Mhm. Mhm.
So the idea here is what I sense, they are putting this technology, this working technology, this working
Yeah.
industry in the center and
Defense
putting
industry. Yes.
AI, yeah, adding AI to this technology. So that's what we can expect in the short come, maybe in 5 years.
Exactly.
We cannot expect a big AI boom in
Yeah.
Turkey,
Yeah.
but there are some AI projects in Turkey, like
Like the
uh,
drones and the high advanced autonomous aerial platforms like that for the Bayraktar who's coming at.
yeah, they are the defense technologies as well as
Yeah.
military technologies. But I think in or one of our broadcasts we have talked about Turkey is planning to educate millions
Mm.
of people. I'm not sure about the exact number, maybe thousands or tens of thousands, but
Yeah. Tens of
uh,
thousands. They're saying it. Yeah.
yeah, after all, they are planning to educate these people as the professions in this area. And there are very similar projects in the region. For example, Egypt is also planning to educate professionals in this area. I'm not sure how are they going to affect the ecosystem, but the countries like GCC countries like Dubai or Qatar or the Saudi Arabia,
Yeah.
they are investing in high-tech AI technologies.
Yeah.
And
For the $10 billion bet for infrastructure, they told that.
yeah, they announced it. I think Saudi Arabia announced a budget more than 20 billion
Yeah.
US dollars,
Yes.
and they are also planning to build a 500 megawatt data center. So the
Mm.
problem is about the data centers. The data centers are essential for the AI. You cannot have an AI without any data center, and the data centers are bonded to the energy. So if you don't have energy, you cannot run a data center. And by luck, by chance, we have lots of energy in the Middle East. So Saudi Arabia or other countries have already access to these energy resources. And what we can expect is they will also provide data centers to international customers. For example, in the last war between Iran and I think there was a conflict with
USA.
the GCC countries, and the Amazon data centers was one of these targets. So there are already data centers in the region, and these data centers are fed by the energy resources they have in the region. So we can categorize the countries like this. One type of countries are investing in the data centers, high technology, AI, etc. The others are investing on the human resources, strategies, localization, or cultural developments on these AIs. So, of course, everybody is doing part of this
Different part of this,
investment,
yes.
but we can say in some aspects, some of these countries are more targeted,
Powerful
more
than,
oriented. So
yes.
that might be the case in the Middle East. For Europe, the story is completely different. In Europe, Turkey is getting, the importance of Turkey is increasing by the time because of the Ukraine-Russia conflict. And I think in the last decades, but last speech of Trump and the Trump administration we can count in, he was talking about stopping NATO or stopping the
he wants
defense.
to stop supporting the US.
And stopping the expenditures for the defense of Europe. So in this case, Europe is in a risk, and they are highly bonded to Turkey about the defense because Turkey is not a member of EU.
Especially after the bad relationship between the Germany and the Russia. They don't want to make the things happen again with the Russia, because Russia is always got a risky country for the UN or the US. So everybody blames the German about the power relationship between power agreements between the Russia and the Germany. But in the last of the sentence, they need someone
exactly.
who
So
can get the power
there is
of
a
the
conflict
US.
there is a conflict between Russia and European Union because of the Ukrainian conflict. The history or the political conflicts are maybe some other topics we might talk in sometimes else, but for now we can easily say that there is a conflict, and this conflict brings up a security problem and risk. And this risk brings up the importance of Turkey as the second biggest army of the NATO, and also a high-tech technology provider for the defense purposes. So that's going to increase the importance of Turkey. And of course, the bond between the link between the AI and the defense technologies is going to get much more important in this time. So that might be an answer for your question, perhaps. For example, for European Union, they need to go beyond the regulations. They are very famous for the regulations. They do these regulations
they
all
love
the time.
Regulations, yes.
They love the regulations. But now they are going beyond the regulations and they are going to the action.
Because we usually hear. I'm sorry for the interruption. We usually hear about the Europe strictly in the terms of the heavy regulations, heavy tech regulations, like the AI Act. Nowadays, the topic we're talking about is Euro is going to be able to balance this regulation between the actual capital of the defense innovation.
For if it is the security, then you can forget about the regulations in some cases. So most probably, they have the EU AI Act, which has been published first in 2024 August, I think. In this year, in August, they are going to apply. They have some phases of application, so they will apply, I think, the last phase. They will take it into action. And I think in next year, 2027, in August, they will start to apply and punish the
Apply the
companies
yes.
if they don't obey the rules they have
How much?
published.
How
So
much was that? How much? It was big money, right? Like the 3% of the income or the 14% of the income, something like that. They put $1 billion regulation
yeah,
fees. They're gonna
I
punish
don't remember the
companies.
exact amount, but it's more than 30 billion US dollars as far as I remember. But
Wow.
the other thing is they can have these payments for the I think global income on global income, about 7% of the global income, which is a huge money for the AI providers and the technology vendors. So
Yeah.
that's going to be a problem for most of the technology vendors who are selling any product to European Union or producing a product in European Union. They have AI factories. They are planning to develop 19 AI factories, I think.
Yeah.
And these
With
AI
this punishing
factories
money. Yeah.
yeah, and these AI factories are not the factories building with AI. They are the factories for building AI models
Yeah.
and algorithms, and they are open to the society. I mean, yeah, there are some regulations for using these AI factories, obviously, but there are some. They are, after all, open for the society, like the universities, companies, or governmental institutes, etc. So they will be available on European Union. They are spending huge amount of money for
Yeah.
AI.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. They are
And the
starting
thing,
the new industry of the AI. They're investing not the only the companies of the AI. They are building the industry of AI in the Europe.
yeah,
They are so
exactly.
aggressive. They are so
A
aggressive.
new industry is booming. There is an industry already ongoing in EU. There are some hubs and some
Yeah.
hubs are, I mean, much more competitive, and they are in the global scale. But
Mm.
they are spending the governmental budgets to these factories. This is the thing. I mean, in European Union, for most of the countries, they have a budget for managed by the government, not the
Mhm.
companies. For example, in US case, most of the companies are spending their own money from the company budget, but in
Yeah.
European Union the story is completely different, and they are the taxpayers money after all.
Mhm.
So the regulations are different. I mean, and the approach to the competition is completely different. In US, there is a
Exactly.
competitive environment between the companies, but in European Union, I think the government is going to regulate the industry, and this
Exactly.
regulations is not be similar to the US case. And
Exactly.
China is a completely different story, but as we promised in the beginning, we will not go into the US and China. Instead, we will deal with the European Union, Middle East, Turkey countries, Turkey, and the other countries beyond the Silicon Valley and the China cases. Okay.
Exactly. So when you say US, I always remember the Iran nowadays. So let's move to the Middle East then. If it feels like we are seeing a massive the power shift there, you know what? The how is the Gulf capital? You know the energy from the sun, solar energy, and the wind power energy. So on all the data centers investments changing in the global AI geopolitics. I think they're gonna move to Middle East, right? Like in
Yeah,
the first
as
topic
we
of
already mentioned,
yeah.
energy is shaping the data centers. So the competition in the data centers industry is going to be shaped by the energy resources.
Mhm.
US has a good energy resource. Russia also has a good energy resource, and of course, the Middle East is very famous for the energy resources.
Yeah,
And of course, they are booming the nuclear power. And maybe in Europe we will see much more nuclear power, nuclear energy power plants, but it's going to take time for building these grids and of course the data centers connected to these
his aims.
energy
Yeah,
resources. But
exactly.
from this respect, for example, China has problems because the
Mm.
energy resources in China are limited, and we already in the Iran conflict we already understand that China has resources for the energy already stored. But if there is a conflict ongoing for a long time, then China is going to have a problem. Like all the neighbors of China had the problem, like the Philippines, Indonesia, the other countries in the
Thai,
Pacific or
Thailand, yes.
Thailand or in the Far East have these difficulties because of the energy resources, and that might happen again because of the China, similar to the China, and so. From the data center perspective, we can say that U.S. has an advantage in this perspective too, and also the Middle East has this advantage. And what U.S. tries to do is they are providing the high-end frontier artificial intelligence to the Middle East. So
Mhm.
the Middle East countries like the GCC countries like Dubai, Qatar, or Saudi Arabia, they have access to the high-end artificial intelligence technologies. We call them as the frontier AI. And these accesses are limiting these countries to make any other agreements with the different countries. So a part of this agreement brings up that you are connected to the US technology and you cannot give this technology to other countries, to third party, third country, or you cannot use a technology from these third countries. So these countries are getting bounded to, it's making their sides clearer and sharper by these agreements. So we can assume that the Middle East, the energy resources in the Middle East, if they are going to be converted to the data centers, these data centers are going to be the playground of the US technologies, most probably.
So if we understand that relationship between the China and the Europe, I think so, because they are the two sides of the power right now, right?
Mhm.
Like the US and the UN on the one side, and the China and the Russia, the Iran, the other countries on the one side. So if we're looking at the Eastern Europes and the Baltics and the Balkans for the UN or the European Union, this area seems to be transforming into a completely new defense tech radar. What is the main trend at there right now, Hushan?
Yeah, there is a NATO summit in Ankara. I think it's started, right? I'm not
Yes,
sure
yes,
about
yes.
the dates. It's
Yesterday,
already started. Yeah,
yesterday. Yeah,
we can consider this NATO summit as the turn back for Turkey, right?
exactly.
So yeah, there was a conflict between NATO and Turkey was moving and getting closer to China or Russia or other
Yes,
countries. And S-400s was a problem for Turkey defense industry, and
yeah,
F-35 project has been stopped for Turkey.
yeah.
And
We
now
quit.
I think it's a return of Turkey, and it's happening in Ankara, and it's very meaningful. The location is meaningful, the timing is meaningful. So I think there's a problem with the
Yeah,
camera, right?
with your
Okay, let
camera,
me
right?
switch the camera here.
Okay, we are back.
Okay, so we can continue with this one, right?
Yes.
Okay, it works. So
Yeah.
yeah, the NATO and the members of NATO, of course, European Union has a great link, an important link with NATO countries
Exactly.
and NATO strategies. There are many bases of NATO and European Union, and there are
We
many members,
army.
of course.
Yeah, we are the best. The powerful or the powers, the most powerful the country of the NATO army is the Turkish NATO army, nearly like
It's
in
the
the
second,
second
I
place
think,
or the
after
third
the
place. Yeah,
US.
yeah, yeah,
It's the second biggest army. The power
yeah.
is, up to debate. You can approach and you can measure the power from different aspects. But yeah, the biggest, by the number of soldiers, maybe we can say
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
And of course, there are many NATO bases in Turkey as well. But
exactly.
yeah, the AI technologies in the defense is also going to be important for European Union, as you have mentioned in the Eastern Europe.
Yeah,
And there is a conflict between it's neighbor after all, right?
yeah, yes,
Ukraine and Russia are the neighbors of European Union, and there
yes,
is a conflict over there. And this brings up the new dilemma. For example, the former Iron Curtain countries like
yeah, exactly.
Bulgaria,
Yeah,
Poland, the other
Poland.
countries,
Yeah, the
they might
Baltics.
have the problem. They have the social bonds and they have cultural bonds with Russia, and it's not easy even for Ukraine. Ukraine and Russia conflict is not a social conflict in between these
Exactly.
citizens. It's a political conflict after all.
Of course, yeah, of course.
So the countries like, for example, Poland is very close to the region, and they have now the missile defense systems, I think, and they are spending much more money for their defense systems. And there is a risk, and there are lots of immigrants from Ukraine and Russia as well in Poland,
Yeah.
and Estonia, for example. So these
Latvia, Lithuania, yes.
Latvia and Lithuania,
Romania, yes.
yeah, these Eastern European countries are affected much more than the west of the Europe. But
Mhm.
I mean, after all, you can consider the Europe as Europe, and Russia and Ukraine are the neighbors of the Europe, and these
Yeah.
problems are going to increase. And of course, the drone technology is getting important because, you
Exactly.
know, the drone technology is much more an AI
AI.
war,
Yeah,
AI battle. We can say that.
exactly.
So after all, the drones are controlled by the artificial intelligence. Yeah, there
Mhm.
are first person viewing drones which are controlled manually, and at the
Exactly.
last
For intelligence and for bombing, yeah.
for intelligence and for attacking purposes, yes. But at the last days, I think these FPV, first person viewer
Mhm, mhm,
drones, are
mhm.
getting much more important because there is a cyber war. And if a drone is, I mean, programmed or controlled remotely, they can attack in a signal level, and these signals are jammed, and the drone is getting malfunctioning. But after all, there is a, flock or swarm of drones, and these drones are controlled by AI. Thousands of drones
Mhm.
are controlled by AI. The latest attack to the refinery in Russia, I remember there are hundreds of drones attacking at the same time, and
Yeah, 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 yeah.
the defense systems was not capable of stopping all of them. So now the new drone wars are bringing up the production of anti-drone missiles. And now, especially in Eastern Europe, the countries like Poland or Estonia or other countries close to the region, they have factories for building anti-drone missiles, and of course launchers for these missiles. And it's gonna bring up a new industry, new economy for these countries for sure.
Exactly, exactly, exactly. So, uh, finally, let's cover with the Turkish republics when we if we talk about the Turkish Turkey's back his story. So the final, let's cover with the Turkic republics like the countries like the Kazakhstan, the Azerbaijan, and the Uzbekistan. So can they successfully build these digital states combined with the real AI capacity of them, like in Turkey, like the defense capacity or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, the Kazakhstan is all these countries have different cultures, different capabilities, different heritages,
Yeah.
etc. They are the Turkic countries, and they are somehow they have been connected with the Turkic roots. But the economy of Kazakhstan is completely different than the rest of these Turkic countries. So they have resources, and they have the energy resources, especially, and these energy and the population is relatively less than the other Turkic country, for example, from Turkey.
Mhm.
And of course, Kazakhstan is spending money for increasing their AI capabilities. And I think they have announced a special AI project for this. I have a
Yes.
student from Kazakhstan, and tonight he has the PhD dissertation, and he is working on the Kazakh language and on AI. And I think by this connection, I have been able to see what's going on the universities in Kazakhstan,
Mm,
and they
mm.
have very good universities, by the way, in the
Yeah, yeah,
ranking,
exactly. Yes, yes.
uh, and they are doing something good, I think.
They're
Uh,
making the AI law the focus on the governance and the safety. They are making education and the implements. They are pioneering this kind of technologies, right? In
Yeah, they do.
Kazakhstan.
They do exactly. They do. And if maybe you are younger than me, you cannot remember. But in the
Yes,
in the
it's no problem.
during these independence time of these countries, I think majority of the resources of Red Army was in
Mhm.
Kazakhstan.
Yeah.
like the space
Yeah.
launchers, the missiles, nuclear
Yeah. Old
plants, nuclear
Russia. Yeah.
powers, tank factories, etc. And what happened is they still have these military power, I think, and they are spending on this military power. Of course, they have been
Mhm.
renovated, but Kazakhstan is a different story. In Uzbekistan, it's a bit closer ecosystem. We will talk about them in detail in the next episodes, of course. These are just an introduction. All these countries requires different specialties, expertise, and we will talk about them in detail in the next episodes. But for now, as an introduction, I can say that culture and governmental organizations and the political
Mhm.
culture, political heritage in Uzbekistan is completely different than the Kazakhstan, and they are also offering some tax-free environments for the international investors,
Wow.
and they are also trying to do their best. In Turkey, the story is completely different. Turkey is trying to build the venture capitalist, so
Yeah.
VC, and there are some hubs, technology hubs. They call them as techno centers, techno cities, techno parks, etc. And in these centers, they are clustering these AI startups. And of course, there are good international startups
Mhm.
already get unicorn, and so I think there is one decacorn, more than valued more
Wow.
than 10 billion
Wow.
US dollars, but there are some unicorns, and the technology and of course the human resource capabilities are booming in Turkey. So what I can say is, yes, in the Turkic countries there is a connection, and of course Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan or Uzbekistan are doing their
Mhm.
they are playing the game from different perspectives, different cultures. So in the next episodes maybe we can go into the details of these differences and their advantages and what they are planning to do and their strategies, of course.
Of Turkic states. Yeah. We can involve this the topic
Mhm.
for the regional, yeah, digital cooperation. Yes. So just I want to ask something. If it's this have been an incredibly the comprehensive map of the emerging the AI power. Like any final thoughts about to wrap up this episode
Mhm.
for the last sentence is the for the we can continue from the Turkic states, or do you want to add something?
Yeah, of course. We have talked many things. I mean, we have talked about the Middle East, we have talked about the US,
Yeah.
China, different
Yes.
countries, European Union, different,
Yeah.
completely different cultures, completely different political views, completely different economies, and populations are completely different. So this is
Exactly.
just a first step for the many episodes we are starting
Yes.
now. And
Yes.
in the next episodes, probably we will talk about all these details, and of
Yes.
course, we will give much more information about the local news of AI, artificial intelligence, and the
Yeah.
technologies related to these artificial intelligence. For example, the defense technologies, startup ecosystems, economy, finance, etc. So we are starting now, and this is the first episode. And see you on the next one.
Yeah. See you. Bye.
Bye bye.